All right.
Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Courtney James. Courtney James has been in the Toronto, Canada film and television industry for 25 years, working from the ground up on Hollywood productions, Netflix and Amazon series, network shows, music videos, web series, commercials, and independent features. Roles have included actor, stand-in, stuntman, PA, grip, assistant director, writer, and producer. He considers himself a jack of all trades and has made the rounds. For the last 25 years, he has written and directed 95 plus projects and counting. Welcome to the podcast, Courtney.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm an open book. I'm ready to dive in deep. So,
okay,
let me
great.
have
'Cause I'm excited to hear about this because it looks like you just tried everything on the set just to figure out which one you wanted to do.
I did. It was interesting at the beginning of the journey. Like I always knew I wanted to be in film and television. It was something that I just, seen my first shows when I was a kid. I just was mesmerized by it. But as you get older, you go to university, you have to start making decisions about your life. You're like, how do I get into this? How do I figure it out? So, I thought I wanted to be an actor uh, off the get go. I did the theater at school. We'd film little projects at high school. Nothing too serious, but I always love to entertain people, make people laugh. I was a bit of a jokester and all that fun stuff. So, I gave it a try, and I was very fortunate at the beginning. I booked a lot of stuff, surprisingly. And as I was going through the process, and you have your highs and your lows, I started to kind of, think about writing. And I also thought more about, what it took to, make this stuff that I loved. And the only way to really understand it is to really kind of dive into it. And that was kind of the advice that was given to me. So usually when you get into production and behind the scenes, a role that's usually done is you're a PA for, producers, for directors, for writers, as well as just crew, because all the crew are kind of broken up into departments. So you basically, whatever they needed, you took care of. So I jumped around and did a lot of that with union work and non-union work. And then I started to kind of explore other avenues. I was, doing the grip work, assistant directing, and then along this journey, while I was doing this, I started writing my own stuff, and I was still auditioning on the side as well. And I like to just keep busy and just be around it. So when I eventually was like, okay, I've got to shoot my first thing. I got to do it. And this was back when we were still shooting on film. So I shot my first project on Super 16, which was kind of such an eye opener because it's so different now with the digital age and the way they do things and how you have to process the film, take it in, get it all kind of color corrected before you even, cut stuff together. And then the kind of the reality of it all is you're still digitizing it all to kind of give it to the editor. So it was a weird process for me because I was also going through the transformation from film to digital. So I was kind of like, you're getting schooled in the old school ways, and then you're also, if you want to survive, you got to learn the new school ways. So it was like a very interesting educational experience in that capacity. So yeah, it's something that you're doing constantly. And like I'm 25 years in, and I'm still working on sets doing, not all those jobs anymore. I've kind of, decided what things I want to do so I can still be around and see what people are doing. But these on-set type of jobs are the best way to really understand the process and become a better storyteller. And that's kind of my reason behind doing all these things and becoming a jack of all trades.
Wow.
So
how did you start out? Because I know you live in Canada now, but is that where you grew up? Where did you grow up?
I did grow up in Canada. I lived 2 hours outside of Toronto. It's a very small village called Lakefield, and it was just outside a kind of a bigger city called Peterborough, which is still tiny.
Dr. Kimberley
in
Linert, you're
comparison
listening to Incredible Life Creator
everything.
Podcast. My guest today is
So,
Melissa Carter. Melissa Carter has been a morning show radio host for over 20 years and is a featured columnist for Georgia Voice in Atlanta. Melissa is a podcast. Sorry, that thing just turned on.
Yeah, no worries. We can.
That's okay. We can cut that out.
Yeah, we can cut it. Do you want to?
There's nothing else
no
still on. I don't think so, but I was trying to edit that earlier today, and I guess it decided to turn on. So
it does that sometimes. I find technology like at the weirdest times. You don't think you touch a button, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom! All these fucking windows open up, and you're like, what? Okay.
But, that's what happened. Okay, so
okay. I guess we could start from where I grew up, because I think
that sounds good. And I'll just cut in the middle.
Yeah, the first part won't be. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to re-ask the question, or it's up to you?
No, just go ahead and start.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I grew up outside of Toronto, Canada. So I grew up in a small town called Lakefield. It's just on the outskirts of Peterborough, if anyone is familiar with Canada, but or you can Google. But anyways, Lakefield is very small, but it has this private school, which is actually a famous private school that belongs to the School of Trinity, which is part of the Commonwealth. So what this means is royalty from around the Commonwealth send their kids to these schools, usually for maybe a year. The purpose was for them to get to know their subjects back in the olden days. And it stuck with traditions. So like the Prince of Spain went to this school where I grew up. And I guess I should put more details into this school for the audience. This school is where I lived. My father was a teacher at the school. So we essentially lived in a residence, and he was the housemaster to these students. So there'd be like 80 kids living in this residence. Our apartment was attached, and he essentially was their surrogate dad, school contact, as well as our dad. And yeah, it was an interesting way to kind of grow up. And it was essentially rich kids. So it'd be very wealthy, industrial, celebrity, as well as this royal heritage of people that were part of this residence. So it was, something I didn't really realize until I was a little older. Mm-hmm. But, a fascinating fact is Prince Andrew went to our school. Mm-hmm. I know he doesn't have the best reputation right now, and we're probably trying to keep that a secret. But it's those kind of personalities that wandered the halls at this school. So I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a lot of great things that were available to this kind of clientele. But at the same time, because I was the son of the authority figure, it wasn't always the best of times. I would get harassed quite a bit, a lot of bullying, a lot of sticking up for yourself, a lot of, figuring things out, because I was an easy target and outlet to take out any frustrations they might have on my father. So, but no regrets. I like the person that I've become, but it was definitely an interesting part of my childhood. And then from there, the school allowed us to go to Australia for a year, and we did an exchange program. So my father ended up teaching at a school called the Southport School, which is outside of Surfers Paradise in Southport, in Queensland, Australia. And they were a part of the school of Trinity. So we went and lived there for a year, and I was about 9 years old. And this is when I got introduced to swimming, which was a huge part of my life. And I would probably say the one thing that probably kept me, on the straight and narrow with the discipline, and just, living in a small town can be very distracting and very kind of destructive if you don't have focus and you're a certain type of personality. I happen to be that type of person. I needed that focus when I was younger, and I lucked out. I was actually pretty good at it. So I ended up going to Olympic trials in 92 and 96. In my early years, around 14, 15, I was ranked top in the country. My biggest problem with swimming was my injuries. I ended up getting tendonitis in both my shoulders as kind of the tail end of my high school years were happening. So when I went to university, I ended up, I almost went on a scholarship down to the States, but I was a little concerned that I wouldn't be able to deliver. So I chose to stay up here, and I went to a university called McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. And I ended up, I got through the first year and a half. So I was right not to, to take that scholarship ride to Florida State. And yeah, it was one of those really tough transitional moments in my life. And acting, film, all this stuff that I've been thinking about and been passionate about during my high school and younger years, it was time to kind of start exploring that. So this was around when I would say 20. Because I'm going to be 45.
So you started swimming when you were how old? 9?
No, I was 9, and that was about 11 years of my life. And
11 years, that's a lot. Did you have a stroke that was your favorite?
I did individual medleys, so that I happen to be decent at all the strokes, but I would say my strongest ones out of that would be freestyle and backstroke were the strongest out of the 4. But I was pretty good. I was good. It was, it's kind of heartbreaking because I had those dreams of the Olympics, and you kind of, you get on a couple junior teams and you think it's going to happen, and then your body just doesn't, agree with you. And then, I also dealt with my parents were divorcing at the end of my high school years. So I was between like my last few years, I was very alone, but like, again, swimming, my community there kind of got me through those tough times. And when it all ended, I definitely, it was, wow, I was lost, and I'm a driven person.
To be lost.
Yeah, it's definitely, and at 20, so lots of people are lost at that age, and film and acting and all these things started to kind of fill in those blanks, and I started meeting new people, and it's interesting, that kind of transition of your story from one thing to another. So in my early 20s, that was kind of the motivation that made me kind of really look into, making this a career and maybe trying to do this. Like, I did get a university degree in film and drama, but it was mostly theory. So I wasn't the best program. I went more for the swimming. Like, if I went back, I'd probably, switch things up. But at the same time, I'm very happy where I am now. And you do big changes like that, you never know. We wouldn't be talking, most likely, so it's, things happen for a reason, and you figure it out. But that's kind of a nutshell of, my early life all the way up to when I started film production.
Exactly. Now, I've heard that being an actor, the film industry is pretty tough to actually just get in or even get a part. And, you see
100%.
so many people working in restaurants waiting to get their big break.
It's a rite of passage, to be honest, to waiter, bartend, do those kind of jobs. You can't, like, when you get into acting or you get into the film industry in general, you have to expect failure, but it doesn't mean you're going to give up. You're going to get 1,000 no's before you get that first yes. You have to have a thick skin. Like, there's no other way to do it. And to be honest, I got a little spoiled when I first got into acting. I booked my first audition. I did this music video for Hootie and the Blowfish. And it was a single called I Will Wait. But it was like the full-on Hollywood experience. Like, I booked it in Toronto. They flew me. We filmed a little here. They flew me to LA to film 4 more days. We went to Edwards Air Force Base where they did Top Gun and Armageddon. And like, you're getting treated like a star. It's absolutely the most ridiculous thing to get off the top, because it doesn't put you in the right state of mind of what this is all about. So, I had a bit of a rude awakening after, because it was weird. I booked the first few gigs and I was like, oh my God, this is so easy, blah, blah, blah. But then you end up start auditioning again after your successes. You're all high and excited. And then you don't book anything for the next year. And it's a common thing that happens all the time. And it doesn't mean that you're not talented. It's just there's so many factors that kind of go into getting chosen, or being successful. Like, for an actor, are you just relying on other people? Are you going to make your own stuff? Like, you have to make these kind of decisions of what kind of actor are you willing to be? Are you willing to not have any money for a long period of time, but at the same time not give up and kind of keep moving forward? Because it is a bit of a mind fuck, to constantly audition and kill it.
You have, how do you, I mean, I was in LA once and I was getting a massage at a hotel, and the lady giving me the massage, because I had just flown in, she came to my hotel room. She said, yeah, I had this famous song that came up. She was a one-hit wonder. And she's still,
you can live off those.
This was like in the 80s. I forgot what song it was. But I mean, this is like 18 years later, and she, she had finally given up, but she kept waiting for years and years and years, hoping some more of their songs would
of course
go, but they never did.
Yeah, you have to be passionate. And it's also the 1% that like succeed at the level of like, a Brad Pitt or a Julia Roberts, that you got to remember that's 1%. The reality is you just want to work. And like the bonus on top of it is if you can pay your bills and just work, that's a successful actor. And that is probably 80% of the working actors out there. Like, you're just getting by, but they love it so much that they have to do it. There's just this calling. And like, that's how I feel now towards writing, directing. And that's something that I've been kind of cultivating, building my portfolio. I've managed to sell some things along the way, but I'm definitely not exactly where I want to be. But the journey that I've been taking has been incredible. And I know the experiences that I'm getting to experience, the people I'm getting to meet. Like, I've worked with lots of big celebrities, and I've got to be in these $100-200 million productions and be involved and see myself on the big screen, but I can't retire or anything like that, and you'd be surprised how little you actually make, in certain jobs. You're doing this because you love it and you love to story tell. Excuse me. But yeah, it's my big advice for anyone out there is you really need to think about the decision you're going to make. And don't be scared if you try it and it's not for you. It's at least you tried it. I highly recommend people try. If they really want to do it, try. Because you never know. It's that unpredictable, and who knows, you might be that 1%. People just don't know. But if you're not putting yourself out there in some capacity, you're never going to know. So it's it's a crazy thing. So
yeah, I think it's just a crazy industry altogether. I had a real good friend that was an actor, and he was a director in India, but when he came here, of course, he had to start from the bottom again. So he was doing they call him, say, come on over, wait around. And I'd say, who are you today? Well, today I was a hospital patient. Who are you today? Oh, today I was a bus driver. I always ask them, who are you playing today? What character did you get to be today?
100%. Well, the weird thing of the show that I just finished, which to let your viewers know, like I just, COVID's obviously been a big thing this year, and film production has suffered in a huge way because of the way productions are done with people. So all these protocols are now in place. I was fortunate enough to work on a Canadian show that started in mid-July, we were the first network show to go up. It's kind of like a Grey's Anatomy type show called Nurses. And we were the experiment, and it worked. We didn't end up, we just wrapped on Saturday. But getting back to your question, your thing about your friend with the roles, they had hired a group of us, union performers, to play multiple roles throughout the season, so we could kind of keep a bubble, like something that would normally just be, divvied out to a bunch of different people. So I ended up playing 7 different roles within the season. So I'm excited to see if there's a drinking game that can be played by spotting me in different episodes, more than once. Because there's definitely some episodes where I swear to God, I'm going to pop up 5 times dressed completely different as a different character.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, it was kind of this weird opportunity that I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So it was just kind of, so it's this like background continuity job, which is something I'll do, to pay bills and again, just be around it because it's fantastic and you're in the union. So it's not the worst job in the world. But yeah, it was so much fun to kind of like, I played a cop, I played a doctor, I played a patient, I played a visitor, I played a stock worker, I played a security guard, I played a burn victim, a fireman, like crazy. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, these are some of the challenges I guess we're going to be facing moving forward with the way they're going to be putting these shows on. So as you see new shows kind of come to air, a lot of them are going to do the same. So I feel like there's going to be these multiple drinking games with certain groups that do these things. But
exactly, it kind of reminds me of the old time, like Shakespearean time, like when they had only a few actors, but they were all men, but they would play women and they would play all the characters.
Definitely, it definitely had that kind of vibe going on. So, but you become a family. I love the communal aspects of film and television and just the whole world that I'm living in. Yeah, I'm a people person. I love meeting new people and getting their stories, and it's fascinating because everyone's got kind of a unique reason they're doing or maybe are in the film industry. They're not necessarily in it the same way I am, which is kind of 130%, and I'm doing all these different things. Some people just come in and dabble for a little bit and then they go back to these other things they're doing. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting environment to be involved with. So
Yeah. So I was just
yeah.
thinking, I met you through Jen, your wife Jen, and I met
Yes.
Jen through a friend of mine. And it's just amazing how, with all this stuff going on, we're still meeting new people, we're still networking. It's wonderful.
Technology is incredible, and that's the one thing. As much as it's sometimes tough to catch up, but that we're sitting here on Zoom having this conversation, it's great. And like, I know, yeah, my wife Jen, she's daily networking, like with people all around the world. And yeah, it's crazy. Like, it's that she gets up specifically at 6 a.m. to talk to someone in Denmark at 7 a.m. And they've been doing that since March. And it's kind of like part of the routine. And then, meeting all these other people. And yeah, I was, even for a time when the industry was closed, I was hosting happy hours, which every Friday, I'd send an email out to a group of people,
Uh-huh.
and each week would be a little different, or it would just
Sounds
be
like
from
fun.
like for an hour and a half. So it's
Mhm.
like, just drop by,
Mhm.
even if it's for 10 minutes, and
I love
you're
it.
seeing people you haven't seen in a while, even
Yeah.
because your schedules are so wacky. So to
Hmm.
have that kind of quick connection, or being able to just see people you haven't seen in such a long time, in this
Hmm.
way, like face to face, it's great. I'm definitely pro technology, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it's
I
fantastic.
actually had a Zoom call with a friend of mine. She's in India now, but she used to live in my city, but now she lives in India, and we hadn't talked in over a year. And it's like, oh, it was so great to see her.
Oh
And,
yeah.
with all this international stuff with this podcast, I mean, I'm learning time zones. I'm starting to learn about time zones. Okay, the people in New Zealand are 16 hours ahead. They're on tomorrow already. The Europeans are
Yeah.
6 hours ahead of where I am, and I'm always looking at the time, the world clock now, trying to figure out when we're supposed to connect.
Well, I say you're very organized based on all the protocols before this interview. So I think you're mastering it. It's good.
Yeah.
So
But anyways, all of that to say, I was going to ask you, actually, how did you meet your wife, Jen? Because I know you guys just seem to really have that energy,
yeah,
have that
we
chemistry, have that. Ah,
yeah, well, you know what, we have one of those stories, and I sometimes, like, I'll tell it, and I'm going to tell it right now, and then every time I tell it, I'm kind of like, it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense.
mhm,
So I years ago, like, we're about to hit year 14 on our marriage, which is incredible. But when we met at the time, I was in the middle of filming a documentary uh, called The Global Groove Network, and it was a documentary on how music shapes identity and how we all have a soundtrack to our lives. And I
mhm,
told this through my experiences in the electronic music community, because I used to DJ during my university days into kind of my 20s. That was one of my part-time jobs when I was
mhm,
starting to get into film. But I was very enamored with the rave culture
mhm,
of the 90s in Toronto. We had a very, very big scene, and it was very communal. It was just exciting. And, it was this kind of had this um, family orientated vibe where you wouldn't see certain people, and you'd only see them at these events. So I was always kind of drawn to that. So I wanted to do a documentary on it. I started, tracking down the DJs, going to nightclubs, doing things. But I happened to meet her on a dance floor. We were at a club in Toronto. We kind of met through mutual friends, but literally, I saw her. We started dancing, started talking. We hung out for the next 72 hours. It was incredibly intense. And then I proposed to her under a tree in a park at like 7 a.m. after kind of a full weekend of like partying, getting to know one another. Just it was incredible. And she said yes. And we got married 3 months later. And as I said, we're about to hit year 14. And I don't know, I lucked out. I found my soulmate. I found someone that I never thought I would find, especially at the time in my life when that happened. I came out of like an on again, off again 7-year relationship with someone. This is your late 20s. You're basically swearing off love and going, I'm just going to focus on me right now. So it just wasn't something I was looking for. And it's just fascinating how destiny can just kind of happen. And she fell into my life, and she became more than just like, my wife, my best friend, but, we know each other so well. It just felt like a really, easy fit to work together, which I know sometimes cannot be a good thing for couples, to do that. But for whatever reason, it fit great with us, and it's getting stronger and stronger as the years go by. And going through that whole Global Groove Network process was crazy. Like I got obsessive about it. I put us in huge debt. We were in $100,000 debt. I was working a bunch of jobs, just trying to get this done. Originally we conceptualized it as a TV show. So I had first formulated it into a pilot, but we took it to MTV, Much Music. The funny thing that I got, they loved the pilot, but then they didn't think there would be an audience for dance music. And then literally a year later, it became the biggest thing in the world. So this was around 2006. And then by 2008, there's artists like Avicii and David Guetta and all these big dance artists that are charting and becoming this big thing. But I had this pilot where I was at these festivals, and there's 20,000 people, more people than a Rolling Stones concert, enjoying it. And these executives were like, we're not sure if it's popular enough. So you're kind of like,
makes sense.
What? Yeah, it didn't make sense. So this was one of the trials and tribulations that we had to kind of go through. So with all this stuff, I had to salvage it. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to make this and then this is it, because we had all this extra stuff. So I kept going down the rabbit hole to finish the movie, which we did. Thank God we ended up selling it and distributing it. And, we managed to get out of debt, but it was a crazy journey to go through. But the two of us got to go through it together. And I am so lucky that I had that, because it was something I had already started before I met her. So I probably would have kept going and gone off the cliff if I didn't have her in my life. And, it's amazing when you can find people that you kind of connect with on that level and are able to kind of work with them, because, I think that's allowed us with the stuff that we're working on now to, grow and become this powerful thing, because she's got such an incredible background in the stuff that she has a background in. And now she's been educated on what I do, and we've kind of come together and brought these skills together, and it's made us such a more impactful, authentic and powerful force that I'm excited to showcase with all the new stuff that we're creating and building. And it's been a great journey and a great story. So
yeah. So before we came on today, you were sharing with me these collages that you make with pictures to remember things. You want to share that? Because I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I can. You know what? Weirdly, because I know we're on Zoom and I have one right beside me. So I'm going to bring it over to see if you can see it.
Great. Okay.
Just so you get kind of the essence of what I'm creating. So I'm going to show you this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing this, and then I'll give you kind of like a story of what all this means. So essentially, going back to what we were talking about with technology and the happy hours that I was hosting, but that collage represents the 4 months of happy hours I was doing. So I would take screenshots of everybody that participated. And yeah, I like to collage my life. I don't know, it's kind of this crazy hobby, but all over my house, I have these collages of different events, shows I've worked on. Maybe it's a year in review. Maybe it's a vacation. Maybe it's, our wedding, things like that. And it's just something I love doing, and something we're running out of space, but I'm going to keep making them. And something about that physicality, as opposed to looking at your phone or Facebook to see imagery. There's something about that printed image that's, I guess, resonates in my brain a lot more. So that's why I like doing it. Maybe it's a little old school too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just like that, you could look at a collage, and every time you look at it, you might notice something different, but it's reminding you and it's sparking those wonderful memories. And who doesn't want to
definitely.
remember the nice times over and over again?
I completely agree. And every time I do look at these collages, you definitely get something new out of it. But the memories are there. It's like little sparks. So you just need kind of a little bit of visual aid to take you back to those moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess life in general right now, we're moving so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to kind of step back a little bit and remember the life you're living, So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's definitely something that I'm going to probably do until I'm old and gray. So
It sounds wonderful. So, you are a storyteller, but right
yes,
now there's people in the news telling stories, and not very nice stories. So
no,
let's talk about that. This fake news
sure.
thing coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, especially wanting to trust your news, wanting to understand what's going on in the world. And that also this information is being used sometimes as a tactic for control, to, prey on maybe people that are not as thoughtful and uh, understanding that this might not be law, what's being said. They're
Mm-hmm.
not taking things into perspective, which can be quite frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And as a storyteller, I think it's more important than ever to be authentic and, show people the truth. And my hope in November is certain things are going to change to kind of, really start that transition, which I think is happening in ways,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, obviously Trump is a representative of something that, I'm hoping will go away so we can kind of get on with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
But Jen and I were looking at storytelling as something that people are going to need moving forward, especially in uncertain times, because stories are more important than ever. Uh, People have a hard time trusting people, and people want to see authenticity, and people want to trust people. And the way you really trust people, like at least back in the day of handshakes and all this kind of stuff, is you got to know someone.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to get to know someone is to, listen and hear how they grew up, or maybe there's stories from their lives that make sense to somebody out there that could, change their lives. And we're hoping with this program we're creating, that we can give people the tools to do that. So yeah, that's kind of like Fake news. I know, it just makes me boom want to explode, because I think that's the biggest thing we're going to be fighting as we develop and do what we're doing with this. But I'm excited at the same time, because I think it's what the world needs more than anything. So I can get into more detail, I guess. Is that something
Yeah.
we can, I guess, discuss now, or it's up to you?
Yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you, so, um, let's say people are watching the news or whatever, or they're hearing someone telling a story. How do
Yes.
we know who to trust? Is there a way to to test and see what's true and what's not true?
I To be honest, it's tough. It is very tough, but I think authenticity really comes from, making the time and doing the things that we're doing, like right now, with you and I talking on Zoom. We see each other, we're face to face, we're asking maybe difficult questions or things that are going on with the world, and you talk things out a little bit. You can't just kind of can't make a decision based on one moment in time. I think our trust is at a point now where you can't just jump into things right away. There was a time where you could do that a little more,
Mhm.
but I think now, because social media, um, we're always presenting maybe the best us. It's always kind of a polished version.
Mhm.
And, that's not to say that doesn't exist. It's just people tend to connect more to that real side, that real you. And it's hard to showcase that if you're not willing to open up and give a little back. And I think, going back to these moments on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be, you're just getting clips, you're getting glimpses, and it's not the real deal. So I think we have to get back to basics a little bit and start communicating more this way, or even on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, people don't even want to do a phone call. When's
Yeah.
the last time someone left you a voicemail even?
Uh,
Like, it's crazy. I look sometimes at my phone and I'm like, if you're not willing to leave a voicemail at least, I don't know why you would expect me to call you back.
mhm.
I want to know what this is about. I want to know something, but those seem like just, when I grew up, basic things you would do when you were younger. Like, I remember sitting on the phone, in my parents' room for 2 hours on a rotary phone talking to my friends.
The long
And
cord.
it just, the long cord, the whole thing. And I just, texting's great and all these other things. Like, don't get me wrong, I think they're fantastic, but I think this back to basic thing is kind of getting lost. And maybe, the whole COVID pandemic thing, those are some of the blessings that we've been forced to kind of start communicating a little differently
Yeah.
and connecting more, because technology allows us to maybe connect with people, outside our world, that we would never talk to or have the time to connect in person.
Mm.
So, and there's a lot of amazing people out there to meet. And I think a lot of people get maybe stressed out about their circle, and they think, oh, I'm just surrounded by assholes. But they're too scared to kind of go out and discover new people and things like that.
Mm.
So, it's really cool that technology is maybe allowing us to do that, or even these mastermind groups or things that, communities are trying to build online, but more physical, where we see each other and we're not hidden behind avatars and kind of polished versions of ourselves. So I think those are things that we're going to have to take into consideration to really, move forward. But I think it's happening.
Mhm.
It feels like it's happening. So
Think it is. I
yeah,
think
it's
a lot of people are connecting more with new people, and also just with people they know, like like my friend this morning while we were on the Zoom call. But actually today I was looking in my messages, and a friend of mine in California said, "Oh, by the way, my love came back from, I think she was from I forgot, Monaco or something. Anyways, she had moved to another country and they had been together for years, and they were, not doing well because she was taking care of her mother, and she came back, and he had a picture of her and him, and there's this lovely picture of them on my Messenger and Facebook. And so I just picked up the phone, and he didn't pick up because he said he has several phones and he couldn't get to that one.
yeah,
But I just picked up the phone and I left a message. I said, "Oh, I'm so happy to see that Mocha is back in your life, and I'm just so happy for you." And I just left him that little message. And of course, after he got off the phone, he messaged me back right away. "Oh, thank you for the call." Because people
yeah.
they're not calling like they used to.
No, not at all. Everybody, I think we have this fake sense of that we're not lonely, even though we are, because everyone's got their devices, TV, but you're getting pumped one particular message a lot of the time, like especially if it's news
Mhm.
and things like that. So how can you not be, I don't know, depressed a little bit? Like you look at all the news and it's just news tends to, venture over to the negative because it's more exciting to tell people that for whatever reason, even though I disagree. I think a balance is something people really need.
Mhm.
But, you know, I I don't know algorithms. I don't know what people are responding to. So maybe all this messaging is based on that. And also it's yeah, it's I just yeah, people get excited about phone calls like and messages more than you think.
Mhm.
So it's something that hopefully everyone can, do a little more of, and not be afraid to do. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely a different time.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to switch gears here. So you and Jen have been working on this big project, and once it's done, I said I'm already on the waiting list.
Yes, yes.
So talk about that because I'm very excited about what you guys are working on.
Okay, well, I'm excited about it as well. It's basically it's going to be a 10-week certification type program, and it's called the Art of Mindful Storytelling. So the purpose, of the program is to teach entrepreneurs how to kind of level up their brand and business by building kind of a mindful mindset and mastering their own storytelling with their clients, with their community. It's all about helping people kind of figure out how to tell their story on multiple platforms. And we've broken it down in a way that goes deep. Like we want people to really understand the stories that they can tell because everyone's got a great story. It's just the trick sometimes is figuring out how do I tell that to the world? How do I monetize that story? How do I, um, you know, help other people? My clients. How do I communicate maybe the stories they have, and how can they use that to better themselves? So we've kind of broken it up into like I would say like 5 phases. So in our first phase we'll kind of establish your mindful mindset and kind of a winning brand strategy. In phase 2 we'll create kind of a unique create your unique story and master kind of your body language.
Mhm.
And like in phase 3 we help you build connections that last and help you unleash your confidence. And like phase 4, it's helping yourself stand out as an industry expert by mastering this art of communication. And with phase 5, it's all about showing up on camera like a pro and being able to share this message that we've kind of cultivated with you and coached you through, so you can tell it to the world in the way you need to do it. And it's something that's, partly online, but it's also, involves us and helping coach you, and, and also helping build a community around these people that are all participating and getting people together and helping people network and introducing people to other experts in their fields that kind of are under the umbrella of storytelling. So that's it in a nutshell. There's obviously a lot more to it, but we're excited about it. We've got some incredible strategic partners involved with the program that will help kind of enhance the learning and ensure that we're providing the best value for our clients. So that's kind of what we've been building right now, and what you're participating in is our upcoming pilot, to get even more feedback, to get us ready for the launch, which is going to happen sometime in February. So if you go to the site, theartofmindfulstorytelling.com, you can get a lot more detail on what we're doing. And you can go there now, and there's quite a bit of information. We are updating it throughout the weeks and into the new year, but it will definitely, you'll get an understanding of what we're doing and what we plan on doing. So yeah, that's what we're up to as a team. And then along with that, I have other things going. I'm busy working on a feature film where we're building a kind of a radio play podcast channel where it's going to be more kind of audio type storytelling, like the way the BBC or the CBC Canada do. It's like the old days, because
podcasts. You sat
podcasting.
around the radio. I was just talking to my dad about that last week. He's like, we didn't have TV. We sat by the radio and listened at a certain time.
Exactly. And I've been very fascinated with that world for years. And like we tend to, like when you put together a video production, you're doing a sound mix. So putting in all the details and things like that. So, that was kind of where I first got excited about the format. And then during this pandemic, I've been listening to more podcasts, and I've got introduced to some other, channels that have been doing this type of storytelling. And I even remember when I was younger, like, remember the CBC, I have a distinct memory of listening to Empire Strikes Back. Like they had taken Star Wars and they had made it into kind of a radio hour format. And it was still exciting, that's where, like, wow, that's incredible sound design. So like your imagination can still put all the visuals together based on what you're listening to. So yeah, that was something I really wanted to explore. So I have 5 stories right now that we're prepping to launch that are all different genres, but they're still, in the early stages, and I hope to have all that ready by maybe March to launch. So it'll be just like a little after this Art of Mindful Storytelling launch, but we'll have all the details of that on all our sites, social media, and who knows, maybe we'll interview again and we can chat about that down the road. So.
So is your social media under the Art of Mindful Storytelling, or where can people contact you actually?
Okay, well, this would be the best place to kind of find us is under kind of our production names, which we're kind of running the Art of Mindful Storytelling under. But as I said before, the Art of Mindful Storytelling has its own site. You can connect to us. So if you go to artofmindfulstorytelling.com, strictly for that program, you can figure out what that's all about. But from a social media perspective, I'm Admit One Productions, and it's all spelled out, ADMITONE Productions. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. My partner, my wife Jen, is under Double J Lifestyle, and she's also on Instagram and Facebook. And we both have websites for these parts of our lives. So the Admit One Productions would be under admitone.ca. So that is kind of what I'm all about, what I've been working on over the last little while, as well as links to Art of Mindful Storytelling. If you're curious, if you want to kind of see some of the stuff that we're creating, it's constantly kind of being updated. But the same with Jen, Double J Lifestyle. If you go to doublejlifestyle.com, you'll find what she's all about. And all these sites talk to each other. We're all connected. So if you go to one of them, you'll figure out how to get to the rest. But yeah, that's us on social media right now. And we try to keep people updated and get on there and talk and do our thing. So yeah.
There was a couple web series too that you had mentioned. Yeah.
That I did mention. That? Yeah. You know what? I will. Yeah. These are fun. I've been making web series production for the last few years, and there was a couple that are fun, exciting, that we're also kind of involving our audio radio play podcast. There's going to be stories from these universes that are going to be part of that. But one is called The Fursona Files, which I know is a crazy title. Fursona is all about the furry culture and the cosplay world. So it's a Black comedy that kind of follows these crazy characters that kind of are involved with this lifestyle and world that if you like comedy, if you like things that are a little out there, I highly recommend it. Another one is Six City, which is, if you go to sixcityseries.com, this is kind of like a nighttime drama that I've been building different stories under. So it's kind of like a 6 degrees of separation in the 6, which Toronto is known as the 6. So I've been building different types of stories that are kind of living in this universe. So the first one is kind of a drama. We have a horror series called Ravage, which is living in the 6 City universe. Another one called The Puppet from Planet H, which is a comedy, which is also living in this 6 City universe. And the way that they are living in this universe is that we basically used characters that are interconnective. So we'll have a character that plays in one story, but then we might take that character and then play him in a completely different story, but they live in the same universe. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But it's being creative, and I love the idea of stories from the 6, but just telling different tales and exploring different genres. And yeah, I love to write about different things. I do comedies, I do horrors, I do thrillers, I do drama. I'm all over the place. I try to write stuff that inspires me. So those are projects right now that could be fun to check out. And I guess I'm going to plug one more. That documentary Global Groove Network. If you go to groovetheglobe.com, that has kind of the history of that project and all that kind of stuff. But again, if you go to admitone.ca, our original website, all this stuff is interconnected. So hopefully I haven't confused people. I feel like I put a ball under a cup and moved it around a bunch of times. So
Admit One.
Admitone.ca. That's a great place to start. An art of mindful storytelling.com. Those would be 2 great places to start.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. and for sharing all your projects and fun insights.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, this has been great. Thinking about stuff I haven't thought about in a little while. So that's always fun.
That is fun. So I have one last question before we complete. What
Okay.
is your best advice on creating or living an incredible, amazing life?
Just go for it. To be honest, if there's something you're excited about, something interests you, do not procrastinate. Just get off your ass, give it a try. And it might not feel warm and fuzzy off the top. Like, you gotta, you know, play with it a little bit, and not get disappointed if it's not exactly what you think when you start. Give it a chance. Because a lot of times, you know, if you lead with your dreams, they usually know the way to
Mhm.
happiness, and you gotta go for it. So that's the best I can give people. The rest is up to them.
Thanks. So beautifully put. So thank you
Thank you.
so much. And we'll talk
Very
to
well.
you again soon.
All right. Take care, Kimberly.